everybody, to this week's Really Big Fan Pod, our special evening edition of the Really Big Fan Pod. What we decided is that we started doing it in the mornings because that's when Nerd Radio is, but because we're bigger fans of like the late night, we're just going to gradually move it to like 11:30. So we'll be on right after the news. And
the reason why we are here on the lateness was I was being a construction paparazzi for the last 2 days, so
Right.
I needed to go do human things.
you had work that paid you money
Yes.
so you could pay the rent.
Yes.
So, and of course, you can help us pay the rent if you're listening to this podcast by going over to patreon.com/reallyBigFanPod. If you want a commercial-free version of the show, as well as our upcoming second Patreon-only show, the double feature is going to be featured over there. You give us $5 a month, you're in. You're in the door. But besides that, we've got a great show for this week. We're going to be talking to a buddy of mine, Tim, about his love of Sega, most importantly, the Sega Dreamcast. Before we get there, though, you know we got to hit them headlines. It's just what we do. All right, so the really big news that dropped on Monday were the pictures of
Spider-Man!
No, of Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman in his yellow and blue Wolverine costume, filming on location in front of a decimated 20th Century Fox logo, having what looked like to be some kind of cool fight that we can expect in Deadpool 3. Suit looks real good.
Yeah, you have a theory on this.
The yellow suit?
Yeah.
You're
in
gonna
general Deadpool. You're basically saying that you think that they're bringing back all of the old characters so he can kill them.
Yeah, that's been, well, like, you've seen the tweets where Channing Tatum is actually going to get to play Gambit in Deadpool 3 and the other, and I think that, yeah, this is Deadpool. It's going to be kind of like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, but it's going to be Deadpool kills the Fox Marvel Universe. So they have to get the Fantastic Four in there as well. But what's her face? Jennifer Gardner's supposed to be Elektra.
Yep.
In this one. We'll see if we can get Ben Affleck to be Daredevil
One
more time.
I mean, it depends on if they have to. I mean, they co-parent, so they should be fine. But I know that you pointed out to me the silver on the gloves. I think that's so they can put the graphics in later.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't think that
for the claws.
Like, I don't think he does like not practical in the way that like they do for Batman and his like arm guards.
So if you watch some of the behind the scenes footage from the first couple X-Men movies, they did have a specific kind of glove device, which cosplayers have now adapted, that they can grab onto that puts the claws.
Yeah,
right there,
like
which
it's
is
in your
pretty cool.
finger, like you can
Right.
pull them. But
yeah,
that's what it looked like, unless he doesn't have his claws for some reason in this movie.
Yeah, maybe.
You
Maybe
never know.
maybe he doesn't use the claws because they're too expensive.
Yeah, who knows? But I honestly thought he looked really cool in the suit.
That's cool.
I know we've kind of gone off the rails before on like dream castings for that, but I'm just really happy to see Hugh one more time.
I kind of hope, King Bob's in the chat says, give me Spiral. I agree. Give me crazy six-armed Spiral from the X-Men comics. I'm really interested for who gets to be Wolverine next. I hope I live long enough that they recast Wolverine. They've recast Spider-Man 3 times on me already.
Yeah, well, that wasn't necessary.
No, but it was fascinating. And every time it was kind of a level up. Like Andrew Garfield, arguably a cooler Spider-Man than I can't even remember his name, the first guy, Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And then Tom Holland is great.
Yeah, which like this is another side note here is that I had my buddy Tony yelling at me for not watching the Star Wars prequels. Wait till he finds out that I didn't watch the Andrew Garfield ones until No Way Home.
Until like about 12 months ago.
Yep.
And they weren't even on anything. I had to go and buy the Blu-rays.
Yep.
So that you could see them.
But they're awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like he deserves a third.
I agree. I think if we're going to continue to get Venom movies and Kraven and Morbius, like just make Andrew Garfield the Spider-Man that has to deal with them.
Yeah, because at least it'll be funny in that regard.
We'll have a good time.
I really want to see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man making fun of Venom.
That would
Or
be
not Venom.
Morbius.
Morbius.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make fun of Jared Leto. Just mercilessly.
You're a vampire dude? Like a real vampire? No, you're a science vampire dude.
He would totally do that. So, like, when you inject people with your teeth, does that mean you inject them with things? Like, shit like that.
While we're talking about movies, too, Seth Rogen is currently doing press for the Ninja Turtles movie that's coming out because he's one of the executive producers on it, and said when he was young, he was obsessed with Michelangelo and actually busted himself open with a pair of nunchucks and destroyed a chandelier as a child.
You know, I'm not shocked by any of that information.
No, I can attest that when the Ninja Turtles were at their peak, yeah, you wanted like maybe not a real sword, but like I wanted some nunchucks, and like I had a stick that I drew on so it looked like Donatello's stick, and I swung that thing around and I maybe bopped myself a few times with it as well.
I had a friend that had a father that did martial arts.
Yeah.
So I got to play with some nunchucks.
Nice.
And just in general, if you were a silly bitch like me, a silly goose maybe, you are definitely like Michelangelo. Like that's like a D&D placement all on its own.
It is. Yeah, which Ninja Turtle are you?
Like chaotic good. Like that's absolutely Mikey.
Which is fun because there are stories about them playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
Which is really funny. There was an episode in the most recent, in my favorite cartoon.
Oh wait, I
where
think
they played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, because wasn't that when that kid was like, I just wanted people to.
Yes,
my
there was a
friends.
a kid that got mutated into an owl
Uh-huh.
and got psychic powers and made them see their and then left the D&D books out for them to find them so they'd get excited about playing D&D so he could have some friends.
Yep. So I recall that.
Yep. Good stuff.
All right, I got one for you.
Yeah.
This is not the most pleasant one, but I apologize.
Well, it's news is up and down.
I'm sorry for being a Debbie Downer in here, but they have been talking about the strike some more, and
Is
one
of the writer's strike.
Yep. And they were talking about how they are waiting that hopefully they'll get to by October, and most writers will be running out of money after 5 months on the picket lines with no work. And it says the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses, a studio executive told Deadline.
Wild that you can say that shit with a straight face and not realize you're a monster.
Yeah, there's like no empathy whatsoever within that. And like people were saying, like, you know, important reminder, we're dealing with scumbags here.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that the huge number of us couldn't pay our rent on their shitty pay to begin with. So
I hate to say it, but I really hope the Screen Actors Guild joins in. I hope all the unions join in and fucking take them to the cleaners, man.
yeah, they have to. They have to do something because.
But it's this kind of thing where like we all got to survive too.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Like their strategy is valid. That eventually it'll be like, all right, just fucking take the bad deal.
Yeah.
So I can get a fucking paycheck again.
Nope. I mean, I've been there in certain cannabis situations. There have been boycotts and things like that. And if you are seen crossing the picket line, you basically lose your career. So you have to be really careful of like what things you take on and what's part of the MCMA and what's not.
That's the thing I wonder about this Writers Guild strike. Is like, yeah, they could just like hire people off the street to write and make bad versions of shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know that we all appreciate. I mean, that the last time there was a writers kerfuffle with television is when we got the second season of Heroes and like the bad season of Lost and a whole bunch of other shows. But it makes me wonder how far the Writers Guild of America kind of reaches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it reach into like internet videos? Does it reach into music videos? Does it reach into novels? Does it reach into comic books kind of thing? Like, I don't think it does.
To a degree, like there might be like some online content that might fall into it. It depends on who is publishing it, I would assume. If it's coming from like a media outlet like a BuzzFeed or something, that's not really part of it from what I understand. But like if you had, you know, digital content for like, I don't know, MTV, I don't know, something like that. Like that might fall into the category. But the other thing is that like, so coming from the area of artists as I'm in,
sure,
like to me all I see happening is that they'll start extending job opportunities to people who are trying to get into the industry.
Yes.
Under that guise of like, ooh, come in for small pay and we'll give you exposure.
Right.
All that
Exactly.
stuff. And there will be some people that take it because unfortunately, a lot of the time artists are, scrambling to try to make money, and sometimes the network is oversaturated, and then people start taking less money for what they should be doing.
Sure.
Like I know even here versus LA, like the cost of even my friend doing makeup is vastly different. Like her low day here is way different than her low day out there.
Sure.
So you have to kind of look at it from that perspective too, and it sucks because then you have to be the person that makes the decision, do I eat or not?
That's what, yeah.
And that's where, you become you become that bad person that everyone wants to ostracize because you went and took the paycheck. So it's
Right.
a double-edged sword. It's like, where's your morals? And then you're going to be hung for it.
I understand people that get angry for other people crossing the picket line, but like direct that anger at the guy who says, I'm just waiting for you to lose your house so that you'll take less pay.
Absolutely.
Like,
you need to
remember that the guy crossing the picket line does need probably to eat and need a paycheck. And like the real problem is the dude at the top of the pyramid.
Well, and that's what they're banking on, though, is that they want us to turn on each other.
Exactly.
And they'll find ways to make that happen while they get to keep their money. And that's what that is. So it sucks, but that is the reality.
Well, while we're talking about things that suck in the news, Microsoft and Activision won their court case here in the U.S.
Oh, yeah?
to go ahead and let Microsoft buy Activision.
Oh.
The thing that's weird about it is that the judge is family members with someone who works on Call of Duty, which is an Activision property.
Yeah.
And that should not
That should be
allowed.
Yeah, that should be a conflict of interest on so many levels. That's like when you make a job application. It's like, is any of your family members work here?
Yeah.
Is one of the questions that's always on there.
But so the next step is that over in the UK they have some concerns about cloud gaming that they're going to have to be able to prove they're not going to screw up by monopolizing such a large part of the gaming market.
Yeah.
It's wild to me too to think that like mainly all of this, like Microsoft buying Activision, all this whole thing is held up by essentially one franchise of games in Call of Duty. And like it's a franchise of games. I understand why people enjoy Call of Duty.
Right.
I did not understand how big a piece of the pie Call of Duty was.
I mean,
until this all went down, and it was like, yeah, we're not going to let this go through based on Call of Duty, not just Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and this and this and no, Call of Duty.
Yep.
As long as Call of Duty can continue to be on every machine, then you guys can buy them.
Well, and it's wild because even if you're not into it, like you've had Call of Duty before, right?
Yeah, I've played Call of Duty.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even for someone who doesn't play games like that, you have played it. That's
right.
how this works. Like, they get so many people in on it, and then like, I feel like at one point wasn't there a thing where like Fortnite was taking up so much of the pie, and
well, there was a thing, I think it was last year or the year before, where Apple took Fortnite off of their servers
what it was.
because Fortnite decided to start selling V-Bucks in game instead of you having to go through third parties, because Apple takes so much additional out of that, and they're like, okay, well, we'll just start selling them in the game. And Apple's like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, and that's where I say like that is the setup with something like Call of Duty. It's like when something is that much in demand, they're gonna go for it.
Right. It's absolutely wild. Also, as far as I don't want to say the words Call of Duty anymore. I feel like we've said them 50 times in the last 3 minutes.
Duty.
But the Homelander is coming to Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Which is...
You said also Starlight?
Fun. I think it's supposed to be Starlight, Homelander, and Black Noir. I don't know why you can't play as Billy Butcher. Just
that would be awesome.
Get that actor whose name escapes me at the very moment. Get him...
Carl Urban. Get
Carl Urban to call people cunts and kill him in Call of Duty, and you've got me back in.
Yep. No, that would be really fun. I mean, honestly, like, when I saw that Starlight was on the list, I was like, ew. Like,
it's weird.
Like, she's not even cool. Like, Like, I would take Frenchie over that. Like,
I was gonna say, what do you want? What was her?
Maeve would be better.
Maeve would be pretty good. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not the Nazi. I don't want.
You want to be able to play as her.
No. Storm something.
Stormfront.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no.
But the
no.
boys in Call of Duty makes total sense.
Yeah, no, that would makes perfect sense.
That's pretty good. You can cap the Homelander versus John McClane versus Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator.
God. A little bit of canon news here. We've got Snoop Dogg's Death Row Cannabis, and it's coming to Michigan.
Oh.
So he launched this. He bought the rights to Death Row Records.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, he owns that company now. Suge Knight does not have any access to that anymore.
Sure.
So now he owns the company, and it obviously was a record label before, but he obviously then can pick what trademarks
he's expanding
using.
it.
Yes. So it's going to be...
Of course, Snoop Dogg is going to expand it into marijuana.
Exactly. So he's got the... Death Row Cannabis. It was launched in December 2022 out there. They haven't announced the exact date, but it's supposed to be late summer. It'll be sold in eighths with additional products to follow.
Sure.
Which I think this is part of the reason why we saw, like, maybe a month or so ago, Snoop Dogg was giving Death Row chains to everybody. Like, he gave one to Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
What does Ed Sheeran need a Death Row chain for?
I think he went to that Taylor Swift concert and got all that candy and was like, well, I gotta give people something.
No, he gave them to, like, I think he put them on Becky and Bianca from WWE as well.
Right.
And I'm just like, these have to be like, 50-cent chains from like the little ball containers.
Right.
It cannot be actual ice chain.
No,
like.
definitely. I wouldn't think so.
But yes.
It'd be wild if they were.
So we'll see what happens there. But I'm betting that means that Snoop will be out here promoting it. So that'll be
many
great.
people have cannabis products now. Like Mike Tyson's got a cannabis product. Isn't it like a gummy ear?
Yep.
That you can eat.
Yep, there's the ear with the bite out of it.
Yep.
They did actually cut Evander Holyfield in there finally.
Right.
So they had him in the promo for around Christmas time.
But
so
like Kevin Nash has cannabis product.
Yep.
Who's your favorite and whose do you think gets you the most high?
I haven't tried the Kevin Nash one yet. So that I've had some stuff from Cookies. It's all right. That's Burner's brand. He's a rapper. But honestly, like, Darren McCarty's stuff was really good.
It was really good.
I really loved both the flower and the CBD roll-on that they had. And that was done by Pincana, I think, is the distributor. One of the worst ones I ever had was Lil Wayne's brand.
Oh, no.
Lil Wayne's brand was awful.
Okay, so Darren McCarty's, you would say, is the good one. Which one, who do you think gets you the most high?
I mean, still the Darren McCarty stuff.
The Darren McCarty stuff.
Really strong. Like, it was good. It helped with pain management on top of it. So it was like,
You're 2 for 2, D-Mac.
Yeah.
Sponsor our podcast.
Right? I run into him all the time.
Yeah, he's a local
guy.
Absolutely. I told you about this last week in comic book news, but there's a Edge of the Spider-Verse #4. They're doing like another Edge of the Spider-Verse series where they have different universes where different people are Spider-Man or the other things are a little different.
Yeah, was that the thing that Jessica Jones was in?
It was not. No, that was a different
I was
story.
thinking another one.
Yeah, but there's a alternate universe where J. Jonah Jameson gets the spider powers. And Peter Parker builds the suit for him, and he's his guy in the chair.
Oh,
and he calls himself Headline.
Oh, God.
And his costume looks like a whole bunch of newspapers, and he's got a cape of newspapers.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that came out last week as Edge of the Spider-Verse 4. And then a book that came out this week that we talked about a few months ago when they announced it, The Fallen Friend Death of Miss Marvel, is basically the funeral for Miss Marvel, who died in Amazing Spider-Man 25 last month. And I was showing you before the podcast, the really interesting thing is that when you get to the end of the book, there's a page that's just a QR code, which takes you to a like post-credit scene for the book that I will not spoil, but it's interesting that that's how they decided to do it. Because I don't remember any other Marvel books doing that, where it's like, here's your post-credit scene. And you got to go, stick your phone up to it and go to it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
I dig that. I don't know if anybody on here has been rocking on Threads yet, But Threads has been a big deal for the past week in social media.
Yeah.
They've had millions of signups and stuff like that. So obviously Zuckerberg's kind of like he at a lot of stuff. He's kind of
For sure.
It's funny to me because he's never been the guy to like come out and say things like that, and now all of a sudden he's starting to fuck around a little bit.
Do you think maybe he's got a media team that's like, what if we add this to your personality? Because Elon is such a bombastic, like,
yeah, I have a feeling
baby.
that's exactly what's happening.
It's like, what if we just poke the bear as much as possible as you?
So then they ended up somebody had released the photo of Zuckerberg with two guys from MMA or something like that standing there. They're all shirtless. Zuck has a 6-pack.
Does he?
Zuck has a 6-pack.
I need to see this.
What in the world?
Dang, sir.
Nerd with abs.
Dang.
Like he looks like a CPR dummy, but that's beside the point.
No, he's slim.
Yeah.
But that means he's fast. Like, if just judging from these two pictures, if they did do their fight, Elon's probably got the reach, but Zuckerberg's got the speed.
Yep. And I honestly think if you put those two together to actually do a fight, Zuckerberg's been training longer.
Probably.
So unfortunately, like I'm Team Zuck on that one. But
I mean, whichever billionaire loses, we win.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I need Elon to lose. I need it in my life.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm just like,
Zuckerberg
versus Musk, Hell in a Cell. Book it, Trips. I need it.
You had said when they first started talking about that, if they could put like whichever one loses, they have to shut down their Twitter or Threads. If they could put that in writing, like that's such wrestling bullshit, but that would be so hilariously fun.
I feel like that would be perfect, and like whoever wins has to give up, or the other guy has to give up the social media.
Yes.
I feel like Zuckerberg would still win. I really do.
I think we all hope
Elon's a little bitch baby.
Don't say that too loud. I'll shut our Twitter down.
I don't care. I already made us a Threads account.
There you go.
Follow us on Threads.
Speaking of hilariously fun, we're going to get to our interview segment. We've got, as I said earlier, my buddy Tim from Bathroom of the Future. He is a fantastic conversation, as always. Hopefully this will not be the last time we have him on the show, but he's going to tell us all about his love for the Sega Dreamcast next on the Really Big Fan Pod. Welcome back to the Really Big Fan Podcast. I'm super excited this week because for the first time on the Really Big Fan Podcast, and hopefully not the last, I got a good buddy of mine. His name is Tim, and he is the lead singer and guitarist for the band Bathroom of the Future, and one of the biggest fans of the company Sega that I know of. So I was like, Tim, you gotta come on. You gotta tell us about your love for Sega and all their systems. Tim, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm sorry it took me so long to get on here. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't for want of trying.
That's true. Very true. So I know that we have quite a few things in common, one of which being that at least twice during the video game wars, we picked the losing side in Sega.
more than twice. I am at various points, and I don't say this to boast, merely as a statement of fact. I have owned every single system that Sega's released in America, or at least some variation thereof, right? Like, I have, at one point in high school, a friend of mine was like, hey, you like those old video games, right? My grandma was throwing this out, and he handed me a trash bag full of what would be a Master System 2.
Okay.
Which I had actually not seen up to that point, and it's the only one I've ever seen in person, because I've never really looked for Master System stuff. I think I had, like, zillion. Right, yeah. So we could say perhaps that's the depth of my Sega fandom, is that I am an American and I own zillion.
Did you have a question, or you want me to keep going? Okay, then I will continue.
I know absolutely nothing about Sega, with the exception of I played Aladdin on it once,
and Sonic the Hedgehog.
On it.
Everyone knows who Sonic is. It's part of the reason we have furries.
Exactly.
Not that I'm judging. I have furry friends.
I was gonna say that and Robin Hood.
Yeah, and Thundercats.
Yes.
This is not a podcast about furries. Not this time.
Not yet.
Not this week. Not this
Not
week.
yet.
There's Sonic.
But it will be eventually, I'm sure.
Oh God.
So your first Sega system, as you said, was like a Master System 2. I know that we've talked before about the fact that the Genesis was really, really big in your
Yes.
household. Did you have a Nintendo Entertainment System and a Genesis, or were you one of those households? Because Genesis, when it came out, had all those ads about how it does what Nintendo don't.
Right. So speaking to that point, we did have both, and we'd wind up with the Super Nintendo shortly thereafter. The initial thinking, however, because of those ads, was that the NES was for my sister and I, and ostensibly the Genesis was for Dad. So the day we bought the Genesis, here's an old sentence: it was at a software, etc.
Excellent.
And it was late enough in the Sega's lifespan, late enough, I say in air quotes, that it still had Sonic the Hedgehog with it. And the same day we bought that, my dad purchased, if I remember correctly, Dad also purchased the Joe Montana football.
Yeah.
That wasn't the Madden game. The Ghostbusters game, which is fantastic. And then the Rambo 3 game, which is fine. And mostly just existed because these were things that a dad would own for a video game console in 1991.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because you've mentioned before that your dad was really big on the Genesis. I know that I've told Amy before, but I don't think I've told the story on the podcast. My dad bought us a Genesis after we went over to my uncle's on one Thanksgiving, and he had the Genesis with, like, I think it was NHL 97, and he was so stoked to beat like tiny 14, 15-year-old me who plays video games all the time at a video game. So like a week later, my dad went and bought a Genesis and NHL so that when we went back at Christmas, I could whoop him. Because that's just the relationship they had. You mentioned the football game and Rambo. What were some of your dad's favorite games in the Genesis?
So eventually the Genesis would also get kind of ceded over to my sister and I, right, as did most entertainment devices in that household. But I remember my dad was always just super open to like rent stuff, and a lot of it wound up being like licensed titles just for stuff that he'd heard of, right? Because it's like, you're a dad, you're walking through this Genesis section at Blockbuster. Are you going to rent Dynamite Headdy, or are you going to rent the totally okay Beavis and Butthead game, right? Sure. So Dad was super into like Beavis and Butthead and Stimpy's Invention, the I would argue better of the Ren and Stimpy games, and then sports games occasionally. I remember there was a lot of like car racing games, and I don't remember my dad ever specifically being into like automotive sports. But my dad worked in the automobile industry as like a CAD designer, so he just thought cars were neat. So it'd be like, hey, Italian guy I've never heard of with F1 racing, I'll rent that. That's worth $3 for a weekend, kind of stuff, right?
I miss being able to rent video games like that.
Right.
I mean, we kind of have that with like Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, and the PlayStation service now, but you don't get to.
The same.
No, you don't get to go to a store and wander an aisle and look at box art and be like, that one.
Because
no one's going to try to convince me to rent Congo.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even though I didn't do Sega, like that was how I had access to a lot of games. There was a Blockbuster and a, what do you call it?
Like a Hollywood Video.
Was it Hollywood Video?
It might have been a Hollywood Video, because I don't think Family Video existed yet. So it definitely Blockbuster for a bit of time.
But you had Blockbuster and a second one, which is
right.
what counts.
And my dad, like when he would get movies, he would like bootleg them.
Yeah.
Like he just like
yes.
he hooked two VCRs together and would copy one to the other.
Absolutely.
And like if that could have been done with games, my mom's boyfriend would have done that, like after my dad had passed, because that would have totally been his bag. But yeah, I think I rented a bunch of games, but I only had a Super
Nintendo.
Sure, yeah.
And I think I've told you before that I actually, the same uncle that I beat at NHL years prior, when my parents had got me an Atari 800 computer, they got me that instead of a Commodore 64 because my uncle had one. So for Christmas, he gives me this box of discs, and each disc has 4 games on it, and essentially bootlegged about 60 games.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just about to say, my dad at work, because again, due to my dad's job, we were also like the first people on the block that had like a decent like Windows computer and the internet.
Yeah.
So my dad was deep into like the weird like shareware like demo scene trading, where he'd come home from work with just like a stack of floppy disks where it'd say like Raptor Call of the Shadows written on it in like masking tape. and he'd install this like totally sick like airplane game on the computer, and decades later I'd realize, oh yeah, one guy at his office bought those and was just handing them out. There was no way to stop that from happening.
Right. Right. That's another thing that we have in common is that both of our dads were, I mean, my dad wasn't a huge gamer, but they both had a definite love for like the beginning of the first person shooter with Quake and stuff. Like my dad loved, as soon as they went 3D, like I think Quake 2, I tried to get him to play and he couldn't figure out mouse and keyboard. He was just keyboard controls and a lot of just like moving around. Which
is fair. No, which is totally fair. Like some people still don't like those. My dad stuck around until about Quake 3, and he would say that he stopped playing first person shooters as soon as I was consistently better than him at them, which I believe. But like, so not to turn this into the dad cast, but like a little before he passed, I gave him access to my Good Old Games account because he was also working from home and had a ton of spare time. Spare time was not something my dad was used to for the last couple decades of his life. So I signed into my Good Old Games account a little after he passed away, and the first two things I saw were like, wow, I don't remember having this many hours logged in Quake 1 and Duke Nukem 3D. And it turns out that was Dad using my account when I wasn't around, to the point where my stepmom would text me about like, hey, Timmy, I don't know what you put on your dad's computer, but I cannot hear the TV. There's just explosions and cuss words coming from the other room, and I was delighted.
He keeps coming home every night, sitting down at the computer and tipping digital strippers over and over again. I don't understand it.
Listen, if this is the worst thing that like a man that age could be up to, I think we're all doing good.
Yeah, for sure. So skip ahead a few generations. Yeah. Your favorite Sega system that you're here today to talk about is the Sega Dreamcast, which is essentially the final Sega hardware.
It is. It is unless you're one of those that believes conspiracy theories about the Xbox, which I don't fully subscribe to. But yes, the Dreamcast was it, and I admit I think that's a big part of why I still like it. It's like none of these words are about to be in the Bible, but like I am to the Dreamcast what like Firefly people are to Firefly, where it's like, no, if the Dreamcast would have held on for like 4 more years, Sega would still be in business and it would have been the greatest game console ever, right? Like, I'm just making stuff up to justify this thing that I like to myself that didn't stick around as long as I felt like it should have. And I fully admit that. But yeah, like, I talk about the Dreamcast the same way people talk about, like, Farscape.
Yeah. And I feel like, because even I have if they'd have just released, like, the Star Wars arcade game, which was in the arcades at the time, if they would have packed that in with the Dreamcast, they would have sold tons of systems. If they could have got us another Panzer Dragoon on the Dreamcast, I'd have been in. Like my sister got a Dreamcast because she was working at EB and a handful of games. And I think I bought like the Resident Evil, the Berserk game, because I didn't know what Berserk was, but this is anime as fuck. So like I'm digging it. This guy's got a huge sword.
Yeah, do you remember when the Dreamcast had a Berserk and a JoJo's game before 99% of the Western world cared?
Right.
That's bonkers to me. I can technically go play a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game from when I was 13. I wouldn't know what JoJo's was like as a concept for another decade.
Nope, not at all.
Was that Cowboy Bebop game on that?
That is, I have a Cowboy Bebop game for the PS1.
Okay.
And then a couple years ago, I discovered that the PS2 game actually came out.
Wasn't it just in? Did it come out here, or was that just like
just
Europe?
In Japan.
Yeah. Okay. You can't read anything on it.
Yeah.
No.
But just the fact it existed, I was like, well, I have to own it.
Yeah.
I love so much that we didn't get the Cowboy Bebop game, but we got the Lupin the Third game. Now that's not a judgment of quality because I friggin' love Lupin the Third, but it's like, dog, it is the PlayStation 2 generation. Which one of these two anime are people going to recognize?
Yeah, which one is going to be an Adult Swim and which one is not?
Right. Which one of them do I know about because I have Castle of Cagliostro on videotape? And then if I'm that sort of person, do I have $40 right now? The answer is no.
So what are some of the high marks for the Dreamcast for somebody like possibly like Amy that's never played the Dreamcast? What would some of the like really great things that came out on that?
The thing about the Dreamcast, and I think this is the thing that really appealed to me, is that like so much of it was, even if not specifically arcade ports, it was very much that Sega ethos of just like kind of faster paced action games, right? So it's like once a year I'll have the patience and the room in my brain for a JRPG, but it doesn't happen that often. Whereas 99% of Dreamcast games, you can sit down and start playing it within like 10 minutes. You understand what the thing you're supposed to be doing is, right? Like, oh, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm for some reason hanging out at a hotel pool, but I'm aware that I'm Sonic the Hedgehog and I know how to do Sonic the Hedgehog things, right? So a lot of the stuff I've always recommended has just been like that, where it's like, okay, you need to play the first Sonic Adventure because I'm one of those weirdos that thinks the first one's better. Someone with a Shadow the Hedgehog tattoo is really upset at me for saying that, and I understand. I understand. I've always preferred the first one. You need to play that. You need to play Crazy Taxi, just because it's the greatest car driving game you're ever going to experience,
For
right?
sure.
Bad Religion or otherwise.
Arcade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was definitely an arcade for me.
Yep.
And the Dreamcast one had the soundtrack on it, didn't it?
The Dreamcast one is the last one that had the soundtrack. The GameCube one might have. I can't promise that because I didn't own it. I did go through a phase where every time I saw a Dreamcast game on another system, I was too grumpy to buy that.
Yeah.
Even though in a lot of cases they had like extra stuff. Like I've come to understand the GameCube version of Sonic Adventure 1 kind of sucks, but I believe the GameCube version of Sonic Adventure 2 has like extra things going on in it. I was too bitter to play it. I was not going to do that to myself. I already have Sonic Adventure 2 on the system it's supposed to be on.
That reminds me, as an aside, I saw somebody tweet last weekend that Time Gal is going to be on the Switch.
Okay, it is. I don't know if it's coming out in English. That's a Sega CD game that's relevant to this conversation. No, I don't know if it's getting localized because I'm sure the English rights to that game are a nightmare, just like for everything that came out before like 1997. But like, I'll buy Time Gal again. I'm not above this.
That was the only I bought Time Gal for someone else's Sega CD system so I could play it because it was it's like Dragon's Lair but with anime. You're just like pushing left or right and trying to get her through different like the prehistoric era and the futuristic
there's
era.
Like beautiful 80s anime happening and then like a gem on one side of each 4 sides of the screen lights up. You just like mash a button in that direction. Yep. Whoops, I didn't get eaten by a dinosaur. Oh boy. Right. We let people get away with that for a long time. Like Laserdisc games like that's an 80 sentence right there.
Well, you do have a song called Laserdisc Collection, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, since that song has come out, I have owned more Laserdiscs because of people thinking I need them because of that song than I did prior. A friend of ours who moved to Flint forever ago, right when they were moving out, some crap came up, and I happened to be in Ferndale that day where their house was, and they just needed me to drop their modem back off to Comcast. And they text me and they're like, "Hey Tim, I left something on the porch for you." I get there, there's just like a tied up garbage bag full of like laser discs, and I open up and the first thing on top is Batman '89. Yeah. So it's not even like they were bad ones, right? The problem is this was a pile of laser discs that now I have to keep and be responsible for because these are totally sick and I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
You don't even own a Laserdisc player, do you?
Not anymore. No. I do own a Sega CD, so if you need something to play Time Gal on, I think I still own Time Gal.
There you go.
Hey, all right.
It's the CDX specifically. It's the weird tiny Walkman looking one where it's like both in one unit. Cool. Yeah, it's awesome. I haven't fired it up in years and I'm terrified because I guess there's a very common problem with them where unless you store it perfectly flat on its bottom, something just disconnects on the inside, like the laser just wiggles itself loose over time and gravity, right? Like the idea terrifies me. So it's Schrodinger's CDX. I'm too scared to actually use it, but I know I still have one.
I had that problem last year. I went to boot up my Saturn after months of inactivity and it just stopped working.
Saturns are real bad about that. There's like some capacitor or some lens or something, right? I'm not an expert. I love the Saturn. I own 2 of them. One of them is to play Japanese games, which, again, I can't read. I paid $5 for this copy of Soul Hackers. I have to like keep holding my phone up to it to like Google Translate what the menu options are. Oh, I think that means summon. Perfect.
So as we mentioned, you are in a band known as Bats of the Future, and a lot of your songs are about things like the Sega Dreamcast.
It's true.
What would you how would you explain yourselves as a band to somebody who's never heard of Bathroom of the Future?
We get compared to Weezer a lot, and I think it's just because I look like I do, but that's fine.
Well, nerd rock.
It's kind of the same vibe, right? Like, I'd always loved like even above and beyond like kind of obvious pop culture references or anything. I'd always loved any band that made like super specific references to something that only made sense to like the singer. Like the first there's a Piebald song where half the lyrics are just the singer mentioning their friends by name, and it's like I don't know Michael. I've never been to Newberry Comics, but I understand how that feels. I'm glad he got a different job, right? Like that always made it more relatable to me. And then as soon as I heard In the Garage, I was like, oh sure, I know exactly what this guy's whole deal is. I know who Kitty Pryde is. I've owned Dungeons and Dragons manuals. This is fine, right? Or like arguably, I would say even more to the point, Jawbreaker. There's a Jawbreaker. They have these like beautiful literary emotive lyrics, and then in one song he mentions getting drunk and hooking up a Sega because he's at his house by himself. And he specifically name checks Sega, and I'm like, okay, Blake, I know what this is. I know what this song's about. Now, thank you. So I guess that's what we go for. That's a lot of words to say that that's what we go for. Like, a lot of the people that have come to see us were not alive at a point where Toonami had a programming block called Midnight Run, but like they have also stayed up late so they could hear the Bleach with cuss words on the TV, so they know what I'm talking about.
I think what I've always encountered when I have brought up your band is somebody going, "What in the world is a bathroom of the future?" And I'm like, I think you have to listen to find out.
Yeah, thank you. The bathroom of the future is anywhere you need it to be.
Exactly.
Well, and one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on the podcast specifically now is because you guys have a show coming up. I think it's next week.
Yes, it's a week from Thursday as we record this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a timely reference. 2 weeks from now, no one will have any idea what the hell I'm talking about.
No,
this episode's aging like milk.
All this Dreamcast talk, gone.
Nope. Listen, yeah, okay. You and your Limp Bizkit ass video game system from 1999. What's all this about, Wheatus?
Well, that's what I was going to say. You guys are opening up what is a week from Thursday for Wheatus.
We are. It's going to be delightful. It's our first time at the Magic Bag in Ferndale, which is a venue I occasionally have to remind myself is a music venue because I've actually seen just as many movies there. Yes. I've seen concerts first. The first time I ever went there, our drummer James and I, and this is in 2012 before Bathroom even started, but the first time I was ever there, our drummer James and I went to see the Tim and Eric movie.
Nice. I think I saw Scott Pilgrim there one time.
That makes a ton of sense.
For, like a radio show once,
yeah.
I think. And then like, oh no, I saw White Shag there once.
Okay.
Which was pretty cool. They're fun. Chick bassist.
Yep.
I think vocalist as well.
And they get like the kind of quote unquote fun music, right? Like actually the first time I ever saw the Cybertronic Spree was there.
Okay, gotcha.
I think we went and saw, didn't we go and see the lead singer of the Refreshments in his band?
Yes. Roger Klein. Roger Klein played there, and then a couple years ago, like what is it, like early 2019, our friends in the band Lung from Cincinnati opened for the Canadian band Fucked Up.
Excellent.
And I love them, and like the Magic Bag is absolutely a venue where the band name Fucked Up would be on the marquee, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I was
they would just put little stars or something.
Just the whole thing was just a perfect synthesis.
Yeah, that place it's interesting. Like I think the only time I shot there was for White Shag, but it's odd because they get like the weirdest shows at the same time. Like they'll get like, comedy things, and then they'll have local stuff, and then they'll have like an 80s night, and then they'll have like something like Wheatus. So like you never know what's gonna happen there, really.
No, exactly. They'll have like 2 Depeche Mode tribute bands, but then like, oh, it's Archers of Loaf or something, right?
Yes. So that should be awesome.
Yeah.
Teenage Dirtbag time, everybody.
It's gonna be
very excited. That is an album my dad and I actually listened to a bunch, probably while we were playing Dreamcast games at some point at the house. So now this whole thing just comes back together. Everything about me is a huge.
That song until me. I was
that's
like,
right.
You played this song on Rock Band.
Yep.
And he plays it. He's like, "This is awesome." And I was like, "Welcome to the party, man. Welcome to the party, pal."
Yeah,
that delights me. Like, as a man who is as aware of like alternative rock on the radio as you were, admittedly, this surprises me.
Yeah,
like we is slipping by a man who can talk to me about the Catherine wheel. Admittedly surprises me, right? Yeah.
Spot. And it got so funny that I ended up buying it in the Rocksmith game, which you plug the actual guitar into your Xbox for, so I can learn to actually play it. It's just like this is delightful.
Well, if somebody gets a boo boo while they're playing, we'll have you go up and help because you got this.
I can play it. I can play Teenage
Like you actually know how it goes. You just borrow one of my guitars. You got this.
Exactly.
So I think the only question I have to wrap this up, if we lean over toward the Sega stuff again real quick, if Sega put out a system now, would you guys be like the first in line to get it?
As long as it's not like one of those like no cartridge Android like downloadable systems, right? Like I'm an old enough person to know that I still want it to just be like a regular ass game console. But if they can promise me that, absolutely. Like, because the rumors come up like every 5 years, like, hey, Microsoft is going to finally buy Sega. And it's like, okay, fine. Like, I play all the Yakuza games on PC anyway, so I'm not going to notice, right? But if they did that, and for some reason they were like, all right, we're discontinuing the Xbox brand, everybody, this is the Dreamcast 2024. They're like, sure, yes, I'll be there day one. And what I'm going to do is just see what Sonic games are on it and just play those, right? It'll probably just be Sonic Origins, and I'll just buy Sonic Origins again, and that's fine.
Can you imagine if they had the guy that voiced Sonic in the movies voice the game? How ridiculous that could get immediately.
I would love that, but I understand that Ben Schwartz is an expensive man these days. I don't know if they're swinging that.
I mean, he's in everything,
right?
He really
is.
He
is.
He was even in the Muppet TV show.
I have to watch that. I'm so excited.
Yeah, he had a cameo in the Muppet TV show. You'll love it.
The guy who plays him now was on the regular show a bunch, so I think that's why he's kept the role, because everything I can think of that he's played has been like an anthropomorphic animal. Right. I think he was like one of the assassins from Assassin's Creed, but I don't know anything about Assassin's Creed, so I might just be making stuff up. I can't tell Ubisoft games apart anymore, right? Like Sam Fisher isn't in any of these, and they're all just like open world checkpoint fests. I can't do it.
Right. I've got one more question before we let you go, because like I said, you're probably the biggest Sega fan I know in my life, and we've talked for hours about this kind of thing. But back when the Master System and the Nintendo were pretty much going head to head, there was definitely a difference in philosophy between how, and it took like everybody making video games years to figure out how to make home games as opposed to making arcade games that just racked up points and we're supposed to take quarters and making, were unintentionally hard. But it felt like Sega had a much different philosophy on game making than Nintendo did. And I wonder if that's something you can speak to.
I think you're right. And, I think that kind of goes back to like kind of what I was saying when I was mentioning some Dreamcast games I like, just sort of my preference for how Sega does things, because everything they do is like, all their games are like, not all their games, it's, a bit of a generalization, but it's like a lot of their games are a little shorter, or they're a little easier to kind of figure out and understand, or in a lot of cases, they might just be like direct arcade ports. Speaking to Chuck's point, which I think you're absolutely right, you see a lot of that stuff for the NES where like, okay, we're making an NES version of the arcade game Strider. In the arcade game, Strider, you run forward, you jump, and you hit stuff with your sword, and then eventually you fight a robot gorilla in the Alps, right? Strider friggin' rules. I absolutely love Strider. We're gonna make an NES version of Strider. All right, Capcom, it's gonna be a completely different game that's way closer to something like Metroid or almost like Bionic Commando, where it's like a little slower pace, it's a little more exploratory, you kind of take your time more with stuff. Sega makes a version of Strider for the Genesis. It's just Strider.
Yeah, it's
just the version of Strider where I'm fighting a robot monkey in the Alps and I hit stuff with my sword for, a half an hour until the game's over.
Isn't that enough for you?
Ungrateful peasants? But, like, I think that's right, because I like a lot of NES games, or just Nintendo games in general, but there'd be so many Nintendo games I encountered where, like, it was a little slower to get started, or I didn't fully understand what was happening. I was one of the rare people that actually owned Earthbound back in the day. I had an incredibly loose concept of what an RPG was. I just thought it looked funny, and I liked how the magazine ads always implied that the game smelled like farts. Terrible choice in hindsight. But I get there and I'm like, wow, there's menus, and it asks me what my name was, and I have to like eat pizza out of a trash can to get my health back. That's weird. I was just playing a game where I was just picking up rings and jumping off robot beetles. So you really saw that crystallize for Sega. I think you could kind of make the case you saw that crystallize with Sega for like the Dreamcast and Saturn days, even, where, they would sneak out RPGs, right? Like Shenmue's an RPG. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Or like the aforementioned Panzer Dragoon Saga or Skies of Arcadia, which absolutely friggin' rules.
For sure.
But then 90% of their output for both of them, the point of the Dreamcast was to like perfectly replicate Sega's existing arcade hardware.
Right.
Going back to what Chuck was talking about with the Star Wars game, the point of the Dreamcast was like, okay, if you make an arcade game for a system called the Naomi, which is an acronym I'm not going to try to remember, so's Amy, but
you remember me, damn it.
But like if you make a game for the Naomi, you can very easily just put it out on the Dreamcast, and that's why you had stuff like Crazy Taxi, or like why you were going to have the Star Wars Trilogy arcade, or why you did have the pod racing game and stuff, right? So like that you really saw that kind of crystallize, where it's like, listen, the one thing we've always been kicking butt in is the arcade. Let's just make a thing where we can very easily move our arcade games home. And even that was kind of at the point where you saw that not be a priority anymore, right? Because, let's be honest, after about 2001 or 2002, even if there were still arcades around, they weren't nearly as big of a deal as they were even in the 90s, when they were clearly still less of a big deal than they were in the 80s. Like after a while, it wasn't, hey, wow, this system runs a arcade perfect version of the first Soul Calibur. Then it just became, oh, Soul Calibur 3 is on this. I have to go buy it now. Right.
Yeah. And
not that I haven't bought a plenty of Soul Calibur.
You saw that in the Saturn too, with like Virtua Fighter and Daytona USA and that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. No, like Sega's whole, like the reason my family owned a Saturn was because my dad wanted to play House of the Dead at our house. And then when Dad found out House of the Dead 2 was going to be on the Dreamcast, mysteriously we wound up with a Dreamcast.
Right. No, I think where Sega lost me during like the Genesis NES days is like I would beat a Nintendo game like Mega Man, and I'd get like this cool ending sequence, and I'd get the credits, and I'd get this cool music, and then I'd beat a game on the Genesis, and I'd just get thank you for playing.
Yeah.
And then you start and just go back to the beginning.
Somebody jumps by, you see the Treasure logo again, and then mysteriously you're just like at the title screen, right? Like, nope, cool, thanks, man. Give another shot if you want.
I've seen him just watch credits on games, and I don't understand it. So I guess I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, see, like well, and again, I think it just shows like what the priorities were, because this is also at the time when like people couldn't use their real name in video game credits anyway, because video game companies didn't want them getting headhunted. So like, you beat the Sega Genesis Ghostbusters game, and it's super good, despite the fact Winston's missing. But like, you finish it, and there's like, oh, there's a little animation of a ticker tape parade. The Ghostbusters are walking through it. Why is the music in this game credited to a man named Onion?
Yeah. Exactly.
Now we know how Onion from Steven Universe does all his crimes.
That's how he gets all the money to buy stuff.
Yeah, he's like he works for Compile,
and he made this music for a video game.
Maybe now he can finally admit it. Maybe that'll get him to cheer up a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he can finally come out and like get recognition on Moby Games or something.
As we mentioned, Tim, Bathroom of the Future is coming to the I want to say the Royal Oak Music Theater. Is that right?
No, Magic Bag
in Ferndale.
That's right. Bathroom Clause is coming to town
next Thursday. You guys are going to be opening for Wheatus. It's going to be a great time. Where can people find Bathroom of the Future or your personal stuff? I know you've got a website where you'll review video games occasionally.
I haven't updated it in a super long time. It's called Videotron 2000. Much like with everything in my life, I can't pick good brand names. So if you search Videotron 2000, please type blog after that, because Videotron 2000 is actually some kind of like French video editing company, I found out.
Oh!
Yeah. So, well, one day I'm just going to move to France and work for them. And then Bathroom of the Future, we're on like all the big social media profiles, including Threads recently. Again, that's an evergreen topic for a podcast. Let's revisit this episode and see if we're all on Threads in a year. But,
I mean, I'd rather be there than Twitter at this point.
Yeah. It's a low bar, right? Like, I'm into it.
Exactly.
But no, like, we're on all the major streaming services. Maybe not Tidal anymore. We used to joke that we were on the Jay-Z one, and I don't actually know if we are anymore. I'll have to sign up for Tidal and find out.
That's okay.
But yeah, we're pretty much anywhere. If you look for us, just type Bathroom of the Future band, or go to bathroomofthefuture.com, because if you just type Bathroom of the Future, it's a lot of like blog posts from like fixture companies about what the toilet of the future is going to do for you.
Right.
Oh, God.
That's how we got our website, is like, there was
here's
some like
our music. Here's the bidets.
Yep. Right. The guy from our friends in Pew Pew Pew. I was just talking to their singer on Twitter earlier today, and he recommended me a specific brand of bidet that he uses at his house. Because he was talking about it, and I was like, man, I've wanted one since I got back from Japan, but like they're all such a hassle to install, or they're like cheap and terrible, right? So yeah, the guy in Bathroom of the Future is still getting bathroom tips from others. I don't want y'all to think we're running like a monopoly on this.
You're getting bathroom tips. You're getting laser discs. It's hard being a rock star, man.
It is. No, it is. Like, my favorite moment of being in this band, we were playing Dragon Con, and like a group of like drunken Sailor Scouts came in to watch us, and then like a couple songs later, a different group of drunken Sailor Scouts that didn't know the first group came in to see us. So suddenly there's just these two like inebriated Sailor Moons with their boyfriends just like partying up front. And I was thinking to myself, man, this is everything I've ever wanted to happen. If I could tell me at 13 years old this is the sort of thing that would happen to my band, I'm all set. I am peaking right now as a human. I've done all of this world I need to.
Way better than anything that would ever happen to Axl Rose.
That's true.
I've got a couple of questions to see of what you've learned.
Can we get through them in 6 minutes?
Do you want?
You got to go fast like Sonic.
Gotta go fast, like Sonic, right? Exactly.
Okay.
Do you want to
go.
do it with Tim, like we did with James? So you've got kind of a backup.
You can.
Okay.
It's just do we have time?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
only like 5 of these. Okay.
Okay.
Nothing but time. We got this.
So I've got the names of different systems that
Okay.
have come out, video game systems have come out, and you need to pick out which one is the Sega system.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll start here. Let's see. Let me find a pretty easy one. The Casio Loopy, the WOWOW or Wow Wow, the Chameleon, or the Dreamcast.
Dreamcast.
Dreamcast. Yeah,
That
we
was
said
easy
Dreamcast a
enough.
million
Yep,
times.
yep.
So
We got
yeah,
it.
we got
We're
that.
getting there. See, you're doing great, bud. You're doing great.
What is a woo woo? What?
A Wow Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's real. I looked it up on
Alright.
Wikipedia.
I'm coming back on this podcast to talk about the Casio Loopy later, though. That's my next one.
Hell yeah. All right, for our second one, we've got the Dolphin, the Jaguar, the Neptune, and the Saturn.
Saturn.
Sega Saturn. Correct.
You
yeah.
made these too easy.
Some of them are easy, some of them are not. All right, they're going to get harder here.
Okay.
All right, next we've got the Laser Active, the Turbo Graphics, the Astrocade, and the Mega Drive.
Turbo graphics.
Now, the Turbo Graphics was a 16-bit system that was out at the same time as the Sega Genesis,
Mm-hmm.
which in Japan was known as the Mega Drive.
Gotcha.
So you're two for three.
I'm not upset about that. I
No.
don't know anything.
All right. Next is just numbers. I just got numbers that go to a system, and you got to figure out which one is the Sega system.
Oh boy.
I've got N64. That one's kind of easy.
Yeah, that one's easy.
7800, 360, and 32X.
The second one.
The 7800,
Mm-hmm.
that was an Atari system.
Ah. Okay.
There was an add-on for the Sega Genesis that was called the 32X that they made
Okay.
just before they made the Saturn. And
Gotcha.
then,
I was one of 8 people that had that.
Yep, I was gonna
My
say,
dad got it
pop
for me
right
for my
out.
birthday, and it came with a
How
really
many
good
games
Star
were there
Wars
for the
game.
32X?
Oh, under 20.
14.
Something like that.
Something
The
else like
final one ever was this like kind of crappy Spider-Man game that is
Yes.
worth like several $100s now,
Yep.
despite it sucking.
All right, this is the last one. I've got the Zebo, the
You got this.
Amico, the Pico, and the V Smile Baby Infant System.
That last one's a good band name.
You do that again?
The Amico, the Zebo, the Pico, and the V Smile Baby Infant System.
It just keeps going right through my head.
Yeah,
I can't.
he's got nothing.
Yeah, most of these aren't real words. Most of these aren't real words.
Do you
Well,
have
because like the Amica that's actually something
Miko.
else that
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
So that's screwing me up right out the gate. So what the second one? I don't know.
Zebo?
Yeah.
Tim, do you know?
It's Pico.
It's the
Okay.
Pico, the Sega Pico.
My sister had one. It was a
Kids.
children's
Okay.
educational system. It was like a kind of like a weird tablet thing where you'd like, wow, I'm using this plastic pen to make Tails the Fox move around.
Yep. Absolutely. Tim, we love having you on the podcast.
Yeah.
We hope you do this again real soon.
Thanks for having me, buds. I appreciate it. I was on silent for some of that, and I apologize, but I think you got the gold.
Excellent.
Yeah, you're good.
Excellent. We'll be back with our serotonin boost in this week's Really Big Fan Pod. Thanks again to Tim from Bathroom of the Future. We're looking forward to seeing those guys next week, along with Wheatus. Will it hurt Tim's feelings if I say I'm really looking forward to seeing Wheatus more than his band?
I don't think so. You've
I've
seen his band over 20 times.
I have seen his band a bunch of times, but I've never seen Wheatus. But I am looking forward to seeing some friends of mine open for a popular band. That's always very exciting. I like that better than I like actually being in a band opening for a popular band, because I have none of the stress if I'm just watching somebody's band open, and then I'm like, oh, I'm very proud. I'm very happy for you. I'm proud of you guys.
I'm proud of him just for the fact that like this is my fault.
Yes.
And so I'm like, haha, because I'd seen that they were looking for an opener for this particular thing by the booker, and I was like, dude,
You should do this.
do it. It's nerd rock. Do it.
Yep.
And so I'm like, look at that. Look what I did.
Look at you. Look at us.
Look at us. Who'd have thought?
thought?
I can't take any credit for their content, but I can take credit for that part. So
Right.
I will.
Exactly. If you want to hear more from Bathroom of the Future, like Tim said, you can find them on all the major streaming services. You can follow them on social media at BOTF_band. That's for Bathroom of the Future. serotonin boost.
Yeah.
And I actually have mine.
You already know.
Instead of trying to think of one while
We've been off, and then today we actually had one. So.
Yeah, maybe we should do the show on
at
evenings.
nighttime.
We're a little more together.
Yeah.
When we do it in
I'm
the
still
evenings.
drinking coffee either way, so.
It's true, but you're always drinking coffee.
Yeah.
So my serotonin boost is that as we know, Nicolas Cage is coming to Dead by Daylight on July 25th, and somebody put up a Sledge on TikTok, put up a TikTok that has some of his voice lines that he recorded for this.
They got leaked.
Yeah. Let me see if I can play this for you.
Cage DVD has some of the most unhinged voice lines I've ever heard. Stop! I'm the fucking king!
I was hoping he would do that.
Yeah. So Nick Cage is giving us the full Nick Cage experience. Now I'm like before I was like, man, it would be cool just to have a Nick Cage skin, but I really hope they have the voice in there. Now that I know the voice is in there, I'm gonna have to split my time between Fortnite and Dead by Daylight because holy shit,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
that's gonna be fun. Also, it leads me to believe like, can you trigger those while you're playing Nick Cage, or does he just do them randomly? Because a big part of that game is hiding,
Yeah.
and if Nick Cage is just screaming all the time, you can't hide.
Well, is he a good guy or is he?
He's one of the
Oh,
survivors.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I don't know.
Because one of the lines he's got is "Get me off this fucking hook."
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm just hearing Nick Cage go crazy is always gives me a little serotonin.
Right to your heart.
Right, exactly.
For me, I am photographing Upheaval Fest this weekend, and there's like tons of bands on that lineup. I actually realized sometime last week that I was like, I actually have potentially 2 chances to photograph Bring Me the Horizon in the same month.
Interesting.
Like within 2 weeks of each other, if I can get into that Fall Out Boy show.
Yeah.
But like that's their opener, like their special guest. So I'm like, twice in a month is pretty wild.
You're gonna get those photos confused if you don't put them in the right folders.
Oh, I'll definitely recognize the difference between Pine Knob and Upheaval, I think. But they announced that Asking Alexandria and one of the other bands had to drop out, and they added Flyleaf with Lacey Strum to the lineup, which I never thought I'd get to see Flyleaf. So
I think that's
wild.
That might be a bit of an upgrade, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to redo my Asking Alexandria pictures because
Sure.
the last time I photographed them was in 2016, and I was not good.
But like,
But
what are the
Flyleaf
chances that
instead.
how often do you get a chance to see Flyleaf as opposed to see Asking Alexandria?
Yeah,
It's
it's
kinda
true.
cool.
They're coming back in like a couple months anyway.
Right.
But for Flyleaf, I had applied to Sick New World, which was the new metal
Yes.
version of when we were young.
When we were
or
young, yeah.
whatever. And I was just like, I'm probably not gonna get this, but I gotta try for Flyleaf and all these other bands, and then I didn't get it. So it's kind of cool now. Like I was already accepted to this festival, and now I find out I get to shoot Flyleaf. So that'll be pretty cool for the weekend. So
Yeah.
if you hear this between Friday to Saturday,
And you're at
and
Upheaval
you're at
Fest.
Upheaval, flag me down because I get in a zone and I don't notice people and I don't see faces. I'm like working. My brain is like, if you want to say hi to me, say hi to me.
So
I have resting bitch face. It's okay. You can't interrupt me.
what about because you've talked about shooting shows before in your serotonin boost. What about shooting the festival this weekend is making you like excited or giving you that boost of like, hell yeah, life is
Well,
all right.
There's different artists on there that I have not photographed before, and there are some that I get to update photos for, which is both exciting because it's like I feel like within the pandemic, my style changed.
Mhm.
And so by the time I came out of the pandemic, my concert photos look way different than
Okay.
they did before. When you go, like, you look at 2019 to 2021, they're way different.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. I developed a different style. So I kind of want to get everything to look that way. Doing festivals is great because you can bang out a bunch of people all at one time.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to, like, apply for these things.
Right.
And so, like, when I usually do festivals, it's, like, movement and stuff. So it's not a bunch of bands that I know.
Sure.
And the closest I've gotten to doing, like, a rock festival is
Riffest.
And so, like, that's the only real thing other than I did Self-Help Fest when they had it one year.
Oh, cool.
So those are the only ones that I've done, but those have been local to Detroit at that point. So this is the first festival I get to do that's not a Detroit-based festival.
Interesting.
I've never done anything out of state.
And you're excited about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That means I'm doing something right because it means I'm getting access to things I didn't have before.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I know it's not like a pop culture thing that everybody else can share with me.
Well, no, and I
see the photo.
I certainly wasn't like I wasn't demanding you like, you know.
Oh no.
Oh, why is this count? Kind of that's not
No,
what I was doing. I was just like I wondered.
Yeah,
you know, what about it?
There's a bunch of different reasons why, but I just love shooting shows.
It's obvious why I like Nick Cage screaming.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So,
everyone loves Nick Cage losing his shit.
You know, I would hate to find somebody that doesn't like Nick Cage. Because then you'd have to
I don't think I can vibe with them.
Yeah.
I think if people were like, nah, Nick Cage ain't for me.
Yep.
I think if Mike Pandoff says that to me during the double feature podcast at any point, that the show is over.
Yep, we're done here. It'd be like telling Mike that you don't like Star Wars.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. It's gonna be it's looking at the list of movies we're doing for the first couple episodes. It's gonna be a test.
Yeah,
I think on his part more than mine. I think there's movies in there that I think he really loves that I'm just kind of lukewarm on.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But if you want to hear it, episodes of that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks on Patreon. It's a Patreon exclusive show, and at the $5 tier, you can get ad-free shows. And I think we'll just put the Patreon show in the $5 tier. We hadn't talked about it. We're doing it live on air now. But yeah, so follow us on Patreon. Follow us on social media. Like you said, we're on Threads now.
Yep.
And you can find us at everything at Really Big Fan Pod. That's right.
Correct.
There you go. And thank you for listening to the podcast. Rate and review us wherever you get podcasts. Follow our YouTube channel and subscribe to that. And, of course, follow us on Twitch if you want to watch us play video games as well as record this podcast.
Stay frosty, cheese bags.
No, it's Stay Fresh Cheese Bags.
Oh, is it?
Stay Fresh Cheese Bags.
There you go. I don't know the full quote. So... I don't know how to end this.
All right. That's good.
Pull me off the stage, motherfucker!